my fog-born sister.
I don't see, but I see now. I would say.
You're facing the wrong way, Laura. Listen, look, I know most of you now, and for those that I haven't met, then come and say hi before. But look, thank you for coming. Look, Mum would have been a bit embarrassed about all this fuss. She would have been a bit embarrassed about how silly with her kid these tie-dye t-shirts as well. Exactly, thank you. But I think that those that know her would know she'd be dead chuffed to see you guys here today. Really chuffed. So thank you. Look, I've never done one of these before, so I don't really know how they go. I didn't Google it, but I did think I'd tell you a story. Okay, story of Mum's life that you've all touched in some way. Okay, so thank you. You'll recognise some of yourselves in it, hopefully. But let me start. Look, she was born in Glasgow in '59, 1st of July. Would have been her birthday on Friday. Okay, she's 63. Happy birthday, Mum. She was born in Scotland. Her midwife name was Shiona. That's why she's got such a silly name, frankly. Her dad was a policeman. Her mum was a midwife, state registered nurse. Stayed up north for a few years, and then came back down south. Now, she was one of 7. Okay, so today we've got Uncle Mick on FaceTime somewhere. Hi, Uncle Mick. We love you, mate. In the room we've got Aunties Becky, there, Leslie, and the baby, Mas, there. Auntie Mandy is in Italy, sends her love, and for those counting, Mum is holding her little brother Johnny's hand in heaven somewhere today. Colemans grew up in the countryside, in Stemminster Newton, in the arse end of nowhere in Dorset. Okay? They didn't have a lot of money, not many people did in the 60s, but it didn't matter. Made their own fun, great memories. And Lizzie Aldwell was here. Is Liz still here? Hello, Liz. One of Mum's partners in crime growing up. And Liz, hopefully you'll recognise some of this, but she said, these were her words, they made their own fun, felt very lucky to grow up in that environment. Wonderful friends such as Lizzie Aldwell. Talks about making campfires, camping, skinny dipping at the mill, treading on cowpats with no shoes on, smoking at the wreck, stealing Leslie's clothes. Yeah, okay. Look, and just having a great time. She summed it up. She said life felt free and happy. She went to Sturminster High and then Blandford Upper. At school, she described herself as being sporty and not academic, and those that know Mum would probably agree she wasn't that academic, was she? Bless her. Wasn't that sporty either, so it's a bit surprising. Yeah. So one of her proudest achievements was winning the All Dorset Swimming Cup, freestyle, front crawl. Very, very proud of that.
I can beat you at breaststroke.
Okay. Now I tested this with Lizzie, and it turns out it's a horrible lie, so I think Mum just made it up. Right? So we asked her, did you have any nicknames at school? And she said, yeah. She said, I was called Sports Night, right? Now, David Coleman used to present Sports Night, and she was a bit sporty, so I sort of get it, okay? Sort of. But the other one was Hot Stuff. Which, now I just tested it with Lizzie, she said, no. She was apparently called Stubbs because she smokes. Let that be a lesson to you kids, right? Don't bloody smoke, okay? So, look, we all know Mum liked to stretch the truth, a little bit like me. So that's okay, so take some of this with a pinch of salt. So, look, Mum's first job was at the Fiddleford Inn. She washed dishes, broadly. After high school, she moved to Bournemouth. It was in Bournemouth where she met my dad, actually. He was a Thai student with a perm, massive perm, riding a Yamaha motorbike. Now I know what you're thinking. James would look bloody amazing with a perm. Look, she got pregnant with me young. She was 17, 18, and she was, worried about me being whipped off to Thailand, which never happened. No, I would have had a good lady boy. Don't know what you're like. So Mum moved back to Stir for a couple of years, and sort of, that's where I spent my early years in life. I don't quite know the story, but then she got, let's say, swept off her feet by a restaurant manager, ex-footballer, Ray Potter, Laura's dad. Okay, they married, moved to Portsmouth in the early 80s, and then Laura came along 4 years after I was born. Frankly, ruined my life. But,
I got back.
yeah. Listen, life happens. We all know that, and so 5 or 6 years later, Mum and Laura's dad separated, and Laura went to live with her dad primarily, actually. And about the same time, we moved to a council flat in Buckland, actually. Now look, these were the best of times for people like this. Also the worst of times. You got yeah. But look, community, spirit, all in it together. You know, good times, but difficult times. Right, money was tight. Right, clearly tight. We didn't have Laura with us. Mum went through some tough times. Okay, we all did, but we came through them. Right. Liz's mum met Liz's dad a few years later playing pool in a pub, and I don't know if you knew this about my mum. She likes it in a pub. It's okay. Little sister Liz was born in 1990. Now look, we didn't have a phone at the time, and I remember for whatever reason needing to know first. The only phone that we had was a Nutbeams phone downstairs, actually. And so, yeah, they were posh. Yeah, on the fiddle, drug dealers. That's not true. They weren't on the fiddle. But look, Liz's dad made a promise to me that I'd be the first to know. They didn't want the twins to know because it was like I was annoyed about that. So I remember spending hours waiting for that phone call. When I got the phone call, apparently the first thing I said was say, boy or girl, and then I said, no, like that. So there's another sister. She didn't ruin my life as much as I was much more mature by then. Look, Mum had many good years with Liz's dad, and you know, we remember him fondly. Liz's dad's sisters here with us today. Thank you for coming along. So look, life happened again. Look, they went their own separate ways. Again, it happens. Mum decided, for whatever reason, she was going to be a mature student. No, she was never mature, so I don't know where she got the idea from. She went back to Highbury College and she met some great friends, actually. Duncan here with what looks like an iPhone 8. Duncan,
Quite possible. I don't know.
She met Duncan. She met some other folk actually that introduced her to the idea of a housing association scheme. And we caught a lucky break, frankly, and that's how we got out of Buckland. She went for an interview. We were offered a house with our own front door onto the street. And it sounds silly, but that was that bloody one of the happiest times I've ever been. I remember hugging Mum. She was shaking with happiness. We're getting our own front door. It was incredible. And we talked about that a lot actually in the last few weeks at hospital. The house, 37 Brown Road, turned out to be Mum's last house, of course. The kitchen was always full of people. Right, it's like a bloody revolving door, frankly. Look, I suspect many of you have spent time around that kitchen table as well, drinking tea. Probably not tea. Right, yeah, smoking, yeah, medicinal inhalers. That's all fine. I know. So, look, in the early days, look, money was still pretty tight. Money's always tight, right? And so Mum decided that she was, you know, we had a lovely house and we'd make use of it, and so we'd invite some foreign language students into the house over the summer, and Mum would look after them. And one of the, in fact, the first foreign language student, Miho, joined us in 1994. Yeah. Miho's here today from Tokyo, guys, and quite frankly, I'm stunned and honoured and grateful. Miho, Mum would be so happy that you're here. She absolutely loves and adores you and Hannah. Thank you. It's a long way to come for this bloody speech. Arigato. Speak a bit Japanese. So look, I was getting sort of a bit older by this time. Mum met Mike meet us. I moved away to university. Mum and Mike married. And look, life happens, but Mum describes those years as the happiest, most settled, safe years she's ever had. She felt safe for the first time in her life. She was really happy for 15 plus years. And look, stuff happens, but I'm grateful for those years. Really grateful. Now, he's not here today. He wanted to come. But frankly, I'm not hard enough to headbutt him, so I didn't know the nutbeams were coming. So look, life happens, right? They went their own way, and look, by now Liz had moved to Australia. Laura's in Hailing. We were just outside London. But Mum was lucky, right? She travelled a lot to see us, to spend time with us. She came to Italy with us in the early days, where we told her that we were pregnant with Maddie. She came to visit us in Singapore a couple of times, where she basically recruited the local gardening staff and gave out cigarettes to everyone. Kind of annoying. But she travelled to see her mum in Cyprus. I mean, you know this, right? She's friends with everyone before she starts. She went to Cyprus to see her mum. She went to Liz a few times. You know, not bad from someone from bloody Stirling via Buckland. She did all right. You know, Laura and Carmen, they didn't get that far away. Nothing exotic. It was Hailing Island. That's okay. They spent. But you know what? They spent some beautiful summer holidays and weekends. You know, and Mum spent a huge amount of time with Carmen, with Lucia, and with Laura. Look, Mum made an impression on everybody. Right, you can't deny it. She was larger than life, wicked sense of humour. She gave me, by accident, the hardest and longest laugh I've ever had in my life. Okay, so we took her to Italy. It's quite a poignant trip for us, and she wanted to be independent. Okay, so she wanted to sort of go and buy some arts and crafts, and she said, James, how do you say how much in Italian? So I said, oh, it's quanto costa, right? She said, okay, got it. It's unusual to do a quiz in a eulogy, right? Let me take a slide. Does anyone remember the TV show Roots from the 70s?
Yeah.
Does anyone remember the name of the main black protagonist?
Yeah. Kunta Kinte.
Kunta Kinte. Right. So anyway, so I was sort of browsing through the some lovely arts and crafts, and I listen over my shoulder, and Mum says, "Miss Scusi, Kunta Kinte." And I just remember looking up at this poor, confused Italian woman. She made an impression on her that day. Now, I laughed so much, Mum got angry with me. She sent me away. I had to go and take myself a coffee. Still to this day, we laughed about it in hospital. So whenever I go to Italy, I Kunta Kinte. That's not how you say it, by the way. Look, Mum was kind, right? She had an empathy. We talked about this with many of you today. She liked people. She had a link with people who were underdogs, who had a hard time, who were going through difficult times. Okay, she genuinely would give people the last penny in their pocket. She really would. Okay, I mean that. But she was fiercely proud of her children. Actually, now. I know I'm the eye candy in this family, and probably with the best achievements as well. And that's okay. It's okay.
I've always been really modest too.
Actually, she spoke to me a lot about the girls, and it's not about how good looking you are, which is unfortunate. it was genuinely about the good people. They turned out to bloody bits. The caring nature, the resilience to get through what you guys have got through. Right? Both of your mum and dad have gone now, right? Hello. Super proud of you guys, and you know how proud she was, and I know how we know. She told everyone. She told everyone that she met, even the people at the co-op. Co-op know more about our bloody life than probably any of you guys did, right? Look, she was. Please, it doesn't matter about children. Mum loved kids. She bloody loved kids. In fact, she preferred kids to adults, right? She really did. They didn't judge her. She could be silly. They found her funny. And she could be creative with them. That we know that she's been. So look, I'll move on. Margaret Coleman, our grandma, Mum, she died a few weeks ago. Actually, on I think April 19th. Mum was very upset. Everyone was upset. Grandma was old. She was 92. She's had a good bloody innings, right? It wasn't a massive surprise, but it was very upsetting. And Mum said at the time, family is like super important at this time. And Liz had been in Australia, and I said to Mum, why don't you go and spend some time with Liz and spend the day of the funeral hugging each other, you know, meeting the family, right? So on the 5th of May, Mum got on a plane, okay, a few weeks after Grandma died, to be with Liz. To finally meet Liz's youngest, Jimmy, who was born in lockdown. Okay, so that's the 5th of May. She was a really nervous flyer, we knew that, she hated it. She landed in Brisbane after 28 hours and she was exhausted, right? She was gutted, but she was really happy to see the boys. The day after, Liz called and said, look, she's not right? And Liz did the right thing, she took her to hospital on the 7th of May, okay, the first day. All they've done is get her Medicare card straight to hospital, okay? They went for some checks. She was short of breath, but generally sort of optimistic about stuff. And after a week of tests on Friday the 13th of all days, they confirmed the worst. Our world's turned upside down. They told us that she had leukemia. She was going to die, and she's probably going to die in Australia, which is pretty shocking actually. Now at the time they talked to us about weeks and maybe months, and we were sort of hopeful. So look, I jumped on a plane, support Liz, to talk to Mum, to talk to the doctors about, you know, what the options were, frankly. Laura was brilliant from London, we kept her up to date. The hospital staff were just angels, right? Unbelievable. In fact, she had no funding for the first week. They weren't even sure they were going to get paid. And they were absolutely unbelievable, very helpful. She had them running rings around her. Described the tea as piss water, but apart from that, you know, they were great. Now listen, they talked about treatment and we were focused on it. What they were worried about was an infection, and ultimately that's what Mum got. She picked up a pneumonia infection on one lung. Infections are rough, okay, and they sort of got hold of her pretty quickly, but they thought they'd got hold of it, and they were chucking a lot of stuff at her. I came home on a Friday one week and got a phone call basically on a Monday to come back again. So it happened pretty quickly, and she couldn't beat it basically. So as I got back there the second time, they were talking to the palliative care team, which you may not know. These are the team that sort of make you comfortable when you're not going to make it, basically. And they were talking to Mum in very clear terms. She was very brave, incredibly brave. And they were being quite philosophical, and the palliative care nurse said to her, look, you can look back with regrets, you can wish I didn't smoke, you can wish that you'd done more exercise, or you can wish that you ate more broccoli. Right now, Mum was crying at this stage, and she said, excuse me, what the fuck's broccoli? So she's just been told she's dying, and the first question to her was, what the fuck is broccoli? Which was Mum. Okay. So she went to a palliative care unit. She was fed up with hospital. They were poking and prodding her all the hours. She was miserable. She went there to go and see the birds and see the palm trees and see the life. And we were sort of super happy that where she went to, she had a window. She could see palm trees. She sat in a chair. She smiled. The boys could come and visit. And in fact, in the last couple of days, the boys did come and visit. They were playing. They were colouring. She was well enough and aware enough to sort of call them a little pickle. You know, she was. No, they loved it. It was really nice. Carmen and Laura, I know, spoke to her on the phone as well, and so you know, all loose ends were sort of, you know, coming to a nice conclusion. Actually, she had the people around her that she wanted. But remarkably, 3 weeks and 2 days after we were told, she died, and she went to sleep for the last time. Okay. Hold on. So look, she made me make 2 promises. One to carry on doing stupid races and triathlons and make medals. And she loved the medal collection. Anyone that went to her house saw that bloody medal collection. I'm lucky I've got my brothers to help me. She also made me promise to look after these 2 idiots, which I promised to do in front of you, right? So I promise I'll look after them. They don't need looking after. I need bloody looking after. Look at them. They're brave enough. Okay? So she made me do that. She also made me promise to remember her for being kind and happy. She didn't want tears today. She didn't. Although she was happy when Liz cried for the first time. It took her a week, apparently. Some are stronger than others. Look, in those last days, despite it being pretty hairy, we got a lot of laughs out of Mum. We talked about the good times. She remembered the good times, and she was grateful for the good times, actually. So, look, she wanted a song played today. It's Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon & Garfunkel, and we'll play it in a minute if I can get my phone out. Now, we didn't talk a lot about it, and look, I'm not a bloody song analyst, but it seems to me that the song's a metaphor for people living through a rough time, but getting through it, okay? And so the line, you know, I will lay me down, talks about that, talks about sacrifice and perseverance, and that's what she had, okay? She sacrificed a lot, but she got through. I will comfort you is kindness, right? It's a metaphor for kindness. So look, from the bottom of my heart, from Liz and from Laura, from Mum's grandchildren, Liz, so Liz's kids, Jimmy and Michael, are obviously in Australia with Carmen and Luca, Maddie and Lucy here today. Look, thanks for being here. Thanks for keeping her memory alive. Look, remember her as a kind person, and be bloody kind yourself, right? I mean, let's pass kindness on, right? So, let's wear stupid t-shirts, let's listen to a song, let's be kind. Oh, fucking... I've lost all my dramatic impact. I'm going to need some help down from this chair as well. Right, so this is the song that she wanted. I think